Hi, in this video we will learn about the nutrient rich condition for the cell when you will eat during the fat state and the starvation mode during the starvation of the cell. Basically we will going to understand the whole body, so we will need to concern the single cell to understand better. So remember that things. Basically, when you will eat, it means first of all nutrient will be going to the blood circulatory system, and basically when going to the blood circulatory system after the absorption into the blood circulatory system, so all nutrients will basically lead to hypernutrition in blood, which that will go and require the dispose into the cell or excrete in the form of other, for example the cholesterol we convert excrete in the as a bile or other things. So we will just understand that nutrients can be a amino acid, can glucose or fats, the lipids and vitamin, etc. That will be go into the cell, and that absorb into the cell required the insulin for binding with the insulin receptor in every type of cell. So remember, so when spike the glucose, major amino acid and glucose, when spike these nutrients will lead to spike the insulin, and this spike the insulin due to the hyperglycemia will require the invasion or movement, the facilitate diffusion of the glucose into the cell. So remember that things. And when you will eat more, the spike of the glucose is known as the hyperglycemia in your blood, which that required for the normal glycemic level in your blood the insulin. So the insulin is the anabolic hormone released from the pancreas, and it work for the glucose metabolism and glucose normal in your blood. So when insulin will bind with the receptor, with the insulin receptor, so more spike of the insulin bind with the insulin receptor will also cause the insulin insensitivity due to the adaptation, and more insulin increasing will lead to damage the insulin receptor. And on the other hand, the cell don't want to receive insulin too much and receive glucose too much, because cell do not want to inflame itself. So that is why. But initial stage, the type 2 diabetes mellitus will not occur. So late in the passage of time, when you will chronic food eating behavior will lead to cause damage your cell. So after this go the glucose amino acid into the blood, into the cell from the blood by the GLUT channel creation, and the GLUT channel requirement, which that is the GLUT vesicle will be triggered by the insulin signaling pathway, and also insulin signaling pathway will also enhance other things. So in this way, a more rushes of the glucose amino acid into the tissue will lead to hyperglycemia in the blood, in the blood to shift into the cell. When shift into the cell will be more glucose level, lead to glucose intake more, will lead to hyperglucose into the cell, will lead to cause damage, and extra glucose will be converted into the adipose tissue and converted into the fat if when absorbed into the adipose tissue. So remember that these things, because no need to more synthesis of glycogen, because glycogen depend our metabolism, our lifestyle. For example, you are more hard worker, so the glycogen can be synthesized by eating sugar, but no any way for the normal person to synthesize more glycogen, but it will be convert into the fat rather than production of the glycogen or formation of the glycogenesis. But the lipogenesis will occur, will lead to cause obesity, and that is the problem, lead to cause insulin insensitivity, as well as other problem will lead to cause damage your cell receptor, and other signaling receptor will be damaged. So that is the problem for a nutrient rich condition for cell chronically again and again. So that is why. So in this way, you can just imagine that when you will eat more, so on the other hand, the mTOR pathway will be activated, the mammalian target of rapamycin. This mammalian target of rapamycin is basically nutrient rich condition will lead to activate. After this activation, after this activation, basically it will lead to cause the problem. So in this way here you can see
So the
here.
intracellular molecular pathway, the nutrient-rich condition, will trigger the mTOR, and in this way the mTOR will bind with the raptor protein and the ULK1. In this way, the ULK1 will be inactive when the bind with the raptor, and inactive ULK1 protein complex autophagy inhibition, while the nutrient poor condition will lead to mTOR inhibition as well as TSC2 phosphorylation will lead to him inhibit the mTOR and bind with the raptor, but it will be basically phosphorylation to AMPK also phosphorylate, and in this way the active ULK complex autophagy induction.
So the mammalian target of rapamycin is basically trigger the inhibition the apoptosis, but and this is triggered by the nutrient rich condition, while the nutrient deprivation or the starvation mode will lead to inhibit the mTOR pathway. In this way, the mTOR pathway will not mTOR pathway is basically bind with the lysosome, and bind with the lysosome and endosome will inhibit the phagocytosis of the organelle, but will be activated to bind with the phagolysosome and basically endosome bind with these things, and in this way the inhibition of the autophagy of organelle, and this will occur during the nutrient rich condition, but during the nutrient deprivation or nutrient condition when decrease. So in this way, the mTOR pathway, the molecular target of rapamycin or mammalian target of rapamycin, anything. So that will be in basically will not trigger, and the ULK1 protein basically will not phosphorylate, will be basically inactive, and in this way active sorry in this way the phagolysosome will occur basically when activate, when inactive. So in this way the basically phagolysosome will not work. So in this way the autophagy will be not occur, and that is the problem, the mTOR pathway, which that will be basically inhibit, but during the stimulation of mTOR pathway will lead to cause cancer and cell survival. But on the other hand, the apoptosis will be occurred due to the mTOR inhibition, because the mTOR is growth factor process, which that will sustain the cell and maintain the cell structure and organelle homeostasis, but it maintain. So, on the other hand, the mTOR pathway inhibition will lead to phagolysosome activity increase, endosome formation, and peroxisome and other basically will lead to recycle the organelle, the damaged mitochondria, and on the other hand, the whole cell can be recycled by the damaged mitochondria, and that is why the damaged DNA containing cell is basically trigger to apoptosis and programmed cell death. And that is the important things, and that is why we can survive itself, and we can prevent through fasting and intermittent fasting to improve our life and health, to inhibit the cancer causing gene activation and the DNA damage preparation. So the in this way basically the DNA can be prepared, as well as inflammation can be decreased, and thus we can give the chance to repair the cell and the DNA, and the receptor insulin sensitivity increase. So in this way, basically in summary, we will understand in this manner. No, so in the animation you can understand better than this talking. So let's begin to understand.
After the eating food go into the blood circulatory system in the form of amino acid, glucose and fat as well as vitamin or other conjugated molecule. So this is the blood circulatory system and the pancreas is the down and the peripheral cell is the right side. So contain insulin receptor required insulin. So increase of the glucose will trigger the beta cell of pancreas to produce insulin, bind with the insulin receptor to create the GLUT channel vesicle to GLUT transporter 4 channel to enter, and all nutrients will be entered into the cell, into the tissue, and require oxygen more for respiration as well as consumption of this food as a energy or storage. So the adipocytes, myocytes, and other somatic cell will be required these nutrients, but the excessive nutrients will lead to cause inflammation because excessive and damage the cell as well as DNA and cause diabetes due to the insulin receptor damage and obesity, and the immune cell and the many disease will occur, and the inflammation will lead to immune cell trigger and the multiple diseases through obesity. While on the other hand, the constant thirst due to the glucose enter into the cell and the water follow to the cell inside osmosis will lead to dehydration in the blood, lead to continuously thirst. During the starvation, the cell, the immune cell preparation as well as inflammation decrease and the rest will occur. And in this way, inflammation decrease, reactive oxygen species, and our production of oxygen will decrease, apoptosis increase, and repairing mechanism of DNA, cell survival and cancer decrease, and cellular DNA repair increase and ligands sensitivity increase, for example insulin receptor, growth hormone receptor, and other. Insulin not spike, so no receptors more damage, and receptor will create due to the synthesis of receptor from the DNA as well as GLUT vesicle. GLUT4 vesicle synthesis will occur during the rest time for increase the sensitivity of insulin, so the diabetes mellitus type 2 will be not happen.
So I hope you make sense about that. Basically, is the insulin is the major worker for the causing the inflammation when we will spike the insulin chronically. But when we will go to the starvation mode, you can improve your growth hormone to grow your cells, grow your body and bone strength. So intermittent fasting basically inhibit the insulin but increase and drastically increase the growth hormone will lead to grow yourself, and in this way the intermittent fasting will not lose your muscle but grow your muscle, grow your bones, grow your beard, your testosterone stimulation and other factors. So thanks, this is the intermittent fasting. So I hope you make sense. In this video we have discussed about the nutrient rich condition and the deprivation or starvation mode for cell and our body and how it can cause the effect in our body. The intermittent fasting is helpful and go more healthy, but more chronically eating will lead to cause cancer and other problems. So that is why this is the chronically intermittent fasting mean, for example you are eating throughout the week but 2 days you can serve for a intermittent fasting to improve your DNA damage and improve your obesity problem and other disease causes problem, which that will be all things will be controlled by this mechanism. So that is important things, and this is the important things. Basically I am giving the address for you so that it's okay. So thanks for watching. If you want to watch more handwritten tutorial about the biomedical science. You can learn from that in my channel. This is my channel, and you can learn a lot of knowledge about the autophagy and the intermittent fasting, etc. So thanks for watching. Bye.